The House chamber was buzzing with the usual low hum of side conversations and shuffling papers, but beneath the surface, everyone sensed something different was about to happen. It was the kind of tension that only comes when a political confrontation is brewing, one that would be replayed on cable news and social media for days to come. At the center of it all was Representative Troy Nehls, a Texas Republican known for his brash style and love of the spotlight, and Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, the rising Democratic star whose recent announcement of a U.S. Senate run had already sent shockwaves through the state's political establishment. Nehls had never been shy about his opinions, especially when it came to Democrats he saw as threats to his party's hold on Texas. But today, he seemed especially eager to make a point. As Crockett took the floor to speak about her vision for Texas, one rooted in economic opportunity, voting rights, and criminal justice reform, Nehls leaned back in his chair, arms crossed, a smirk on his face. He waited for the perfect moment, then interrupted her mid-sentence, his voice booming across the chamber. "Here we go again with the nut job from Dallas," Nehls called out, loud enough for the microphones to pick up. "Now she thinks she can run for Senate? Give me a break." The words hung in the air, and for a split second, the room froze. Some members looked away, embarrassed. Others leaned in, sensing a viral moment in the making. Crockett paused, her expression unreadable. She had been interrupted before by men with more power and less respect, but this time the stakes were higher. This wasn't just about her. It was about every woman, every black Texan, every underdog who had ever been told to sit down and wait their turn. She turned slowly to face Nehls, her voice calm but carrying a force that cut through the chamber's noise. "Congressman Nehls, I've been called a lot of things in my life. Nut job is a new one. But it's not the first time a man has tried to silence a woman who refuses to play by his rules." A ripple of murmurs moved through the chamber. Nehls tried to laugh it off, but Crockett didn't give him the chance. "Let's talk about what's really nuts, Congressman. What's nuts is thinking that Texas can keep doing the same thing and expect different results. What's nuts is pretending that ignoring our schools, our hospitals, and our voting rights will somehow make us stronger. What's nuts is believing that the only people qualified to lead are the ones who look and think like you." The Democratic side erupted in applause. Even a few Republicans looked uncomfortable. Crockett continued, her voice rising with each word. "You want to talk about my Senate run? Let's talk about it. I'm running because Texans are tired of being told what they can't do. They're tired of politicians who care more about headlines than hard work. They're tired of being called names when they demand change." Nehls tried to interject, but Crockett held up her hand. "No, Congressman. You had your turn. Now it's mine." She turned back to the speaker, her tone shifting from defiant to determined. "I stand here not just for myself, but for every person who's ever been underestimated, dismissed, or insulted for daring to dream bigger. I stand here for the single mom working 2 jobs, for the student who can't afford college, for the veteran who can't get the care they deserve. I stand here for the Texas that believes in second chances, in hard work, and in the power of hope." The chamber was silent, the weight of her words settling over the room. Nehls, suddenly aware that his attempt at a soundbite had backfired, tried to recover. "You're just playing the victim, Congresswoman. That's what Democrats do best." Crockett didn't miss a beat. "Victim? No, Congressman. I'm the survivor. I survived growing up in a state that told me I didn't belong. I survived law school as one of the few black women in my class. I survived courtrooms where I was underestimated until I won. And I will survive your insults, just like I've survived every other attempt to keep me in my place." A few members on both sides nodded in quiet respect. Crockett pressed on, her voice unwavering. "You want to know what else is nuts? It's nuts to think that calling me names will stop me from fighting for what's right. It's nuts to think that Texas is afraid of change. The only thing Texans are afraid of is being left behind by politicians who care more about their own power than the people they serve." She paused, letting the silence build. "So, Congressman Nehls, if you want to keep calling me names, go ahead. But just remember, every time you try to tear me down, you remind Texans why they need someone who will stand up." The speaker banged the gavel, calling for order. But the moment had already taken on a life of its own. Reporters in the gallery were already typing furiously, and social media was lighting up with clips of Crockett's response. Nehls, realizing he had lost control of the narrative, slumped back in his chair, his earlier bravado replaced by a look of regret. Crockett finished her remarks, her voice steady and clear. Texas deserves better than politics as usual. Texas deserves leaders who listen, who learn, and who lead with courage. That's why I'm running for Senate. And that's why I won't be silenced by you or anyone else. The chamber erupted in applause, and for a moment, even Nehls seemed to understand that he had just witnessed something bigger than a political spat. He had tried to make Crockett the punchline. Instead, he had made her the headline. As the House session moved on, the energy in the chamber was unmistakably different. Crockett's words lingered in the air, and even those who had come in expecting a routine debate now found themselves replaying the exchange in their minds. The press gallery was abuzz, with reporters whispering about the moment Nehls' insult had backfired so spectacularly. On social media, the clip of Crockett's response was already trending. With hashtags like #StandWithJasmine and #TexasDeservesBetterLighting lighting, up timelines across the country, but the story didn't end on the House floor. Within hours, cable news networks were running the footage on a loop, with pundits dissecting every word. Some tried to frame it as just another partisan spat, but most recognized it for what it was, a turning point. Crockett's refusal to be rattled, her ability to turn an insult into a rallying cry, had struck a chord far beyond Washington. In Dallas, Crockett's campaign office was flooded with calls and messages. Volunteers, donors, and ordinary Texans reached out to say they'd never felt prouder to support her. One woman, a retired teacher from Houston, left a voicemail. "I've been waiting my whole life to see someone stand up to men like that. You made me believe in Texas again." A young man from El Paso tweeted, "If this is what a nut job looks like, sign me up." We need more leaders like Jasmine Crockett. Meanwhile, Nehls' own office was dealing with a very different kind of response. Constituents who had once cheered his tough talk now questioned whether he had gone too far. Editorials in Texas newspapers called his comment unbecoming of a public servant and a reminder of why so many people are tired of politics as usual. Even some of his Republican colleagues quietly admitted that he had handed Crockett a gift back in Washington. Crockett was invited onto several national news programs. On one, she was asked how she managed to stay so composed in the face of such a public insult. She smiled. "I've spent my whole life being underestimated. If I let every insult throw me off, I'd never get anything done. I'm not here to play their game, I'm here to change it." The interviewer pressed, "Do you think Nehls regrets what he said?" Crockett didn't hesitate. "I think he regrets underestimating me. And I think he regrets reminding Texans that the old way of doing things isn't working anymore." The segment went viral, with viewers praising Crockett's poise and clarity. But for her, the real victory was the way the moment resonated with people who had never felt seen in politics before. She received letters from high school students, single parents, veterans, and small business owners all saying the same thing. "Thank you for not backing down." Nehls, for his part, tried to walk back his comment. In a statement released the next day, he claimed he had been caught up in the heat of debate, and that he respected Congresswoman Crockett's right to run for any office she chooses, but the damage was done. The apology, such as it was, only drew more attention to the original insult. Crockett, meanwhile, kept her focus on the issues. At a town hall in Houston, she spoke about her plans to expand Medicaid, invest in public education, and protect voting rights. She didn't mention Nehls by name, but everyone in the room knew what had happened. When a young woman asked how she found the courage to keep going, Crockett replied, "Courage isn't about never being afraid. It's about standing up anyway, even when people try to knock you down." The crowd erupted in applause. Afterward, a local reporter asked if she thought the incident would help or hurt her Senate campaign. Crockett shrugged. "I didn't run for office to win arguments. I ran to make a difference." If standing up for myself helps other people find their voice, then it's worth it. As the days passed, the story continued to grow. National magazines ran profiles of Crockett, highlighting her journey from civil rights attorney to congressional firebrand. Political analysts noted that her response to Nehls had galvanized a new generation of voters, especially young women and people of color, who saw in her a reflection of their own struggles and aspirations. Even some of Crockett's critics were forced to acknowledge her impact. A conservative columnist wrote, "You don't have to agree with Jasmine Crockett's politics to respect her resilience. In a town full of bluster, she showed what real strength looks like." Meanwhile, Nehls found himself increasingly isolated. His attempt to paint Crockett as unqualified had backfired, making him look petty and out of touch. At a fundraiser in his district, a supporter asked if he regretted his words. Nehls sighed, "I should have chosen my words more carefully. She's tougher than I thought." The moment had become more than just a viral clip. It was a symbol, a reminder that the old rules of politics were changing, and that those who clung to them risked being left behind. Crockett's campaign saw a surge in donations and volunteers, many of them first-time participants in the political process. Her message was simple: Texas is ready for something new, and I'm ready to fight for it. As the next House session began, Nehls kept a lower profile. He avoided direct confrontations with Crockett, and when he did speak, it was with a newfound caution. Crockett, on the other hand, seemed energized. She continued to speak out on the House floor, her confidence undiminished. The lesson was clear to everyone watching. In the new Texas, courage and conviction mattered more than insults and intimidation. And Jasmine Crockett had just shown the whole country what that looked like. The weeks that followed saw the ripple effects of that House floor moment spread far beyond Texas. National organizations took notice. Civil rights groups, women's advocacy organizations, and grassroots political networks reached out to Crockett, offering endorsements and resources. Her campaign events began to draw larger and more diverse crowds, with people traveling from across the state just to hear her speak. At one rally in Austin, a grandmother and her teenage granddaughter stood side by side, both holding handmade signs that read, "We're with Jasmine." Crockett's message was resonating, not just because of her policies, but because of her authenticity. She didn't shy away from tough questions. She didn't sugarcoat the challenges ahead. Instead, she spoke openly about the obstacles she'd faced, about being underestimated, about the pressure to conform, about the moments when she doubted herself but kept going anyway. "I'm not running to be the first black woman to represent Texas in the Senate just for the history books," she told one crowd. "I'm running because I know what it's like to be counted out, and I know what it takes to win anyway." Meanwhile, Troy Nehls was still trying to recover from the fallout. His staff worked overtime to manage the press, but the story wouldn't die. Every time he appeared in public, someone would ask about the "nut job" comment. At a town hall in his district, a local business owner asked, "Congressman, do you really think calling your colleagues names is what Texans want from their leaders?" Nehls tried to pivot, but the question hung in the air. Unanswered. Political strategists began to whisper that Nehls had made a critical error not just in underestimating Crockett, but in misunderstanding the mood of the electorate. Texas was changing. The old playbook of insults and bravado was losing its power. Voters were looking for leaders who listened, who respected their constituents, and who could rise above the noise. Crockett's campaign leaned into this shift. Her ads didn't attack Nehls by name. Instead, they focused on her vision for Texas: better schools, affordable health care, safe communities, and a government that worked for everyone. She told her own story of growing up in a working-class family, of fighting for justice in the courtroom, of refusing to back down when the odds were against her. "If you've ever been told you're too loud, too ambitious, too different to lead, this campaign is for you," she said in one widely shared video. The response was overwhelming. Donations poured in from every corner of the state. Volunteers knocked on doors in neighborhoods that had never seen a campaign visit before. Young people, especially young women and people of color, registered to vote in record numbers. Crockett's Senate run was no longer just a campaign, it was a movement. In Washington, the impact was felt as well. Other members of Congress took note of Crockett's approach. Some began to rethink their own strategies, realizing that authenticity and courage could be more powerful than sound bites and spin. A few even reached out to Crockett privately, asking for advice on how to handle tough moments on the floor. For Nehls, the lesson was harder. He issued a more formal apology, this time on the House floor. "I let my emotions get the best of me," he said. "Congresswoman Crockett and I may disagree on policy, but she deserves respect as a colleague and as a leader." The apology was met with polite applause, but it was clear that the damage had been done. Crockett, for her part, accepted the apology with grace. "We all make mistakes," she said. "What matters is how we move forward. I hope we can focus on the work the people of Texas sent us here to do." The moment became a case study in political science classes and leadership seminars. Professors pointed to Crockett's response as an example of how to turn an attack into an opportunity, how to lead with dignity in the face of disrespect, and how to inspire others by staying true to your values. As Election Day approached, the energy around Crockett's campaign only grew. She traveled the state, meeting with teachers, nurses, small business owners, and students. She listened more than she spoke, taking notes and promising to bring their voices to Washington. At every stop, someone would mention the Nehls incident, not as a moment of conflict, but as a turning point. "That's when I knew you were the real deal," a voter in San Antonio told her. "You didn't just stand up for yourself. You stood up for all of us." On the night of the primary, as the results came in, it was clear that something extraordinary had happened. Crockett had not only won, she had shattered expectations. Her victory speech was short and to the point. "This isn't just my win," she said. "It's a win for everyone who's ever been told to sit down and be quiet. It's a win for Texas." The next morning, headlines across the state and the country told the story. Crockett turns insult into inspiration. Texas Senate race redefined by courage, Nehls regrets. Crockett rises. Even Nehls, watching the coverage from his office, had to admit that he'd been wrong. He had tried to make Crockett a punchline. Instead, he had helped make her a symbol of hope and resilience. As the sun rose over Texas, Jasmine Crockett prepared for the next phase of her campaign. She knew the fight wasn't over. But she also knew that she had already changed the conversation, not just for herself, but for everyone who believed that politics could be better, braver, and more just.